Thank you for the possibility to present at this conference. I'm very happy to do that. So my name is Gunnar, and I'm a research manager at SINTEF Digital, leading a group that works with the data architecture, data analysis, and machine learning. And I was advisor in OceanLab, and I ended up teaming up with Baumann in the expedition. So we're happy to present this together. Okay, so that presentation is in 3 parts. I will say a little bit about SINTEF, and then about data sharing and challenges and sort of prioritized requirements in the OceanLab. And then take the last part, taking consequences of necessary data copying into the bigger picture, which ties nicely into the previous presentation when it comes to data center. So first, just a few key numbers on SINTEF. I just want to highlight one thing here. We have many personalities and employees, but in a year we typically have around 7,000 projects, and they can be very small, from direct contract work with industry to very large, maybe 50, 60 European partners. So there's a lot of different scope projects, but all of them have their data sharing needs, and they have their sort of preferred partners during the project. And of course there is some data generated that should be reused and also used in cross-disciplinary work. So there is quite a challenge in handling the data. On top of this, like we heard a lot about in the previous presentation, sustainable goals are driving the business of SINTEF. This is an example of last year's tagging of projects with which sustainability goal they contribute. And this is a practice we have in SINTEF now to identify for each new project we create which sustainable goals does it touch and does it touch it in a good way. That's a part of creating a project in SINTEF. So you see the big part is in industry and innovation, which is the goal 9, which aligns very well with SINTEF's goal of applied research for a better society. So OceanLab, probably most of you have heard about ocean space and the process of establishing a national infrastructure in the Trondheim area for the university and SINTEF for continuing the maritime research. OceanLab is one of the labs related to that, but it's a separate infrastructure project that started before the construction of OceanLab buildings, ocean space buildings. And OceanLab is the first phase of what we call the real lab, the lab that's out in the sea, monitoring environmental parameters and observing things like wind, wave, plankton, and then you also have a national test area for autonomous ships, and working on the underwater robotics and aquaculture. So try to see if this video runs. It gives us a little background on the lab. So the focus on this lab was also to develop sustainable technologies for aquaculture and fisheries. And OceanLab is mainly located in this area, and the first phase of it is Trondheim and Hitra. And it's the key driver is to do experiments in situ and full-scale tests of sensor technology. Outside the center of Trondheim, we have what we call the subsea test area, which has a lot of structure for the oil industry, and it has a biological station where we have a control room, which is mainly concerned with underwater activity related to oil and gas and communication, acoustic communication networks. Then we have marine observatory, which is a set of buoys we have in the fjord that does different measurements above and on the surface and under. And also connects to the other nodes. And there we can also map things like plankton and plastic, things like that, in the water column. And then the third one is about autonomous vessels in the surface vessels. And the fjord is designated a national test area, so it's a good place to experiment. And monitor vessels from the onshore control rooms and the future space. Then the last one is data-agriculture. SINTEF Ocean has a site area where they actually have a production place of fish farming, and it's instrumented and monitored. And there is, of course, the idea is to feed data into the monitor room. So that was sort of the video overview. In short, there are 4 what we call nodes that for different research areas. Then my involvement was primarily in the systems of the infrastructure to gather data from all these nodes and feed them to onshore control groups. Then we move on a little to the challenges and to our priority in choosing data management technology. So when we apply for the project, we have a chief scientist in SINTEF Digital who is active in big data virtualization and European networks, and laid out high goals, reference model. The point there is not to go in detail on things, but that there is a layered approach, and there is a lot of alternative technologies. And you can get dizzy just by looking at things like that. And but the key point here is that it is a layer approach from data sources in the bottom, curation, storage, processing, and analysis, and value services on top. And on the top, you will recognize the domains that we just saw. And in parallel to this project, we also have a major platform project, like the you talked about, for the entire SINTEF, which is called dataplattfrom, which is next generation research data management platform. That is a large initiative that also started in 2018 and is rolling out now. So during this course, we were trying to maximize synergy between those 2 projects and make it so it fits into the architecture. So there is, the last figure was quite complex. So the key is to break it down into where to start and do that in a quite easy to grasp way. And in this case, we have the 4 nodes that we are in the OceanLab, and we have some external data. And these are typically data sets that are from data streams, most of them, except maybe the other sources. So they're growing over time. And then, considering which alternatives to use, we could start by letting each node handle their legacy way of storing data, and then you risk that there will be a lot of different ways of handling user space, on how to shuffle data between things, and if you want to combine data, you may risk having local copies around each of these nodes. So there's a lot of potential unnecessary data copying and movement. Then the other alternative is to put everything up in the cloud. But these are streams, and so also have sensors that can generate up to a terabyte a day data. If we start pushing that to the cloud, it will be big, but it will also be expensive and challenging to bandwidth. So, yeah. So what we did, we went for data virtualization, meaning that we have something like the last picture, but we don't move the data around. We have a technology platform or a component in the middle that handles the access to the sources and and controls the user access rights and those kind of things. Then you get an easy interface through that system to all the different backend systems, and you have enough capabilities, and you can handle user access standard-based. We typically use Azure directly. And then you can get the data when needed, and you can use caching if you need the data fast or repeatedly, and it's not duplicated, and it has a less energy footprint. So if you go back to the simple figure again, in this project is about making an access level layer, virtual access layer, that connects to all the different types of sources we have, that handles both the security with regarding permissions, and also that you have one interface to build your application or API to build the application on. And you don't have to relate to the different user spaces or access mechanisms for the open sources. When it comes to data virtualization, there was some aspects for us that was very important, which are the one that's circled in red here. I mentioned unified access point, rapid development, of course having to relate only to one API from the top speeds that up. It also has the inherent data catalog and things that makes it easy to trace where the raw data came from, even though you not move it. That's especially important when you collate and you create new data sets to see where they come from. And of course, we also have this issue of exporting data. We wanted to do a subsample over a limited set. And if you use the backend directly, you may have to create another database because it doesn't have the access control for that kind of subset in your rows and columns, so that you again have to replicate data unnecessarily. But in such a solution, you can do filtering on the fly, and you can create APIs for these kind of things. So these were quite important for us. And now we are actually there. We have actually two operational control rooms. This is the first one, which is at SINTEF October, where we have a digital model of the aquaculture production cages that gets live data from the site at Frøya, and you can combine, for example, the dynamical model of the cage with real observations of waves and motion in the sea. So we are there. And then yesterday I saw that Trondheim Biological Station and the subsea node, they published that now their observation of the room is up to speed for controlling ROVs and AOVs on the water. So this has gone quite well. So this takes us back to the Auran architecture. Here we see on the bottom layer the sources in OceanLab and the data virtualization layer on top. How it fits into the main structure in data center, another main platform is into moving forward, where the main platform will handle data discovery across domains and data lifecycle management, and of course also support Azure-based access control and backup and restore. And then, if you remember that this is one project of the 7,000 we touched last year, and this, we can imagine that each of the projects in varying degree, of course, mixes data sources. So this bottom layer here will extend far to the right when you start to integrate more of these projects. And then we actually taken a bigger initiative through this project to the 15 to 20 actors in marine and maritime data in Norway. So we're talking with like IMR in Bergen, we're talking with other public entities to share and align our strategies to how to manage marine data. So then, we are at the last point. I will hand over to you. Thank you, Gunnar.
Yeah, I'm Baumann, and before I begin, I think it's important for me to emphasize that this is not a crusade against cloud centers. They are necessary and environmentally a smart choice, both in terms of climate impact through energy consumption, but also in regards to access to limited resources and metals needed for new service and storage capacity. What I want to focus on is how, by being more conscious, we can save the environment, be more efficient, and reduce cost. There's a saying that around 85% of the data created every day is copies of old data, and only 50% is actually new. This trend is increasing, and today's Statista states the ratio to be 90-10. It's estimated that about 330 million terabytes of data are generated every day, which makes a total of 120 zettabytes for 2023. This includes data generated, downloaded, copied, and consumed. And it's expected that the amount of data will grow by 50% the next 2 years. Private consumption, such as surfing, social media, streaming, contributes significantly. Here, as individuals, we can be more conscious. Maybe, this one is hard, encourage children to rather read a book instead of using YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok for entertainment. We can also be more mindful what we actually store of emails. And not least, the pictures and videos we constantly take with our smartphones. How many almost identical copies do you have of your dog or your kid or grandchild in nearly the same setting? According to TechJury, there are approximately 8,000 data centers worldwide, and the demand is increasing. Statista estimates that the need for storage capacity will grow by just under 20% every year going forward. Whether this growth includes, or this anticipated growth includes the current hype we see around AI and ChatGPT, is going to be interesting to see. All the estimates are found for 2023. I mean, they are no longer there. I mean, there are old reports telling you something about 2021, 2022, but the current figures for 2023 are not find them anymore. And also, what is worrying when we have this extreme growth in data is that the power use efficiency has stalled. Earlier we saw a very good trend when it comes to power efficiency when moving to data centers. And when it's stalled, I mean, we can't be more efficient there. And globally, these 8,000 data centers consume about 4% of the world's energy production, where Exploding Topics estimates that cloud centers account for 75% of this. And in total, the data centers contribute approximately 1% of the global CO2 emissions. In an article published by McKinsey in January, before the hype with OpenAI and ChatGPT, they estimated that the total poverty per data center will increase by around 10% every year until 2030. And most of this growth is linked to hyperscalers, meaning the larger cloud providers. And in Ireland, which was recently featured in a documentary on NRK, data centers consume currently around 14% of the total energy production in Ireland. Ireland is a country facing shortage on housing. And today it's very challenging, if not impossible, to get a permit to start new building projects. And with the trend we see in Ireland now in regards to data centers, in 2030, data centers are expected to consume 30% of Ireland's total energy consumption. In Norway, which was mentioned in the same documentary, they said that one data center in Norway consumes the same amount of electricity as 100,000 homes. And in Netherlands, there are similar challenges, but those are related to water. And water is used for cooling. Water is a natural resource where the total amount is constant. We won't get more water, but availability and access will vary depending on weather, climate, consumption, and development of new water sources. What happened here? So, but what can we do in a work context? I think much is about something that's easy to say, but requires focus to implement. Awareness and smart choices. The keywords are replication and optimization. As Rick van der Laans, if you remember him from last year, he got a confirmation from the participants on the MakeDataSmart-conference last year. They were very good at copying data. There's a constant influx of new data sources that require flexible structures and always accessible data platform. Often this is solved by copying all data into a data lake, data warehouse, or similar. Larger replications also dramatically affects the line capacity. But I ask you, could it be possible, and maybe just as effective, to access the data from where it was originally stored? Costs for cloud solutions are usually associated with the amount of data in, the amount of data out, and also the amount of data processed. For on-premises solutions, if you go out of the cloud, ever larger amounts of data require increased storage space, and both cloud and on-prem service, they require electricity or more electricity for both power and cooling. And the more data you copy into a structure, the more challenging it becomes in regards to data security and data governance. Such as the need for good internal routines when it comes to using tools that use data, optimization, avoiding new copies of existing data, and those copies, they can be, especially when it comes to personal data, it can be very costly, as some businesses has experienced already with GDPR and personal. And Gunnar also mentioned data catalog. A data catalog contains metadata. It's entirely possible to create a data catalog where the sources are on different locations. It's only metadata. So, are the data available in their original source of its file? If I say yes, you can use it. Are the data available as a service? How many copies do you think there are of registers like Brønnøysundregistrene, båtregisteret, and other types of data which are easily accessible as services? And ETL and replication are also labor intensive to set up. Are there ways to make the same data available simpler, faster, and more agile? The prerequisite is, of course, that security and compliance are taken care of, and if the tool also optimizes queries across several sources, it will reduce the cost associated with the actual use of data for your business. And I think that's it.
Any questions?
So thanks for the interesting talk. I had a question regarding the sustainability of data replication versus virtualization. Because if you have the raw data which is there stored in a format which is not ideal for processing, like plain text, for instance, then it becomes a lot more expensive to access the data. So you require a lot more processing power, a lot more CPU hours to read the data. Wouldn't it then be actually more sustainable to copy it into a format which is better for reading and analyzing?
Yeah, I would say that's a good question, and it's always important to convert the data that you're going to share to a shareable format. But we also have data scenarios where, for example, we log fishery data from a vessel going around the Barents Sea, and the fishermen, they don't want to turn that on and off when they're fishing. So you got like 25 terabytes of data from the modern sonar, and before you decide to put any of that in the cloud or share it, you got to do the on-prem filtering and also format conversion. So no matter what, if you want to share the data, you got to have it in a representative form. But it's a case by case if that's a complex process or it's an easy process. Because if it's an easy one, you can transfer on the fly on the virtualization layer. If it's not, you have to convert it on the on-prem and then set up an API for that. And then you may not have to. You have to choose whether it's worth to store the raw data or not. And in the scenario I told you, you're going to dispose of a lot of what I would call black sea data when you don't have biomass in the sensor, for example. But we will be totally crazy to shift that up to the cloud or the bandwidth we have, because another point that was not made there is that when I studied in '91, we had 100 megabit working on the lab, and we stored on 1.44 megabyte diskette. And if you look at the development of bandwidth versus storage, you see that storage has gone maybe a factor of 10 for most of us to a gigabit network, and storage has gone a factor of 1 million. So be quite sure on which data you want to move and how. that's the main point for me.
Okay, great. Thank you for a very interesting presentation, very interesting topic, very interesting way to use data and trying to make it work in a different way. So we'll be back here at 1:45. So now it's lunch.